Good afternoon, everybody. Happy to be here. Thank you for joining us virtually and in person. So I'm a mindfulness teacher. I teach the mindfulness-based stress reduction program, as well as the mindful self-compassion program, which I guess we could call the cousin of MBSR and MBCT. So how did I get here to share mindfulness with you? Well, I am also a neuro rehab OT, and I did that for about 5 years. Until then, I began to learn about neuroplasticity and the amazingness of this physiological function we have when I became a patient. So I actually had a motorcycle accident in 2010. And so in a nutshell, I lost control of the motorcycle, accelerated into a curb, was thrown into a fence, landed on my head, and sustained burst fracture of the 12th thoracic vertebrae with 60% spinal cord compression. So I had incomplete paralysis from the waist down and told that I would never walk again. Now, fortunately for me, I made some progress in the first year, progressed from a wheelchair to a walker to 2 single-point canes. But despite that progress, at the 1-year anniversary after my accident, that's when I started to experience the mental health challenges, so specifically anxiety and depression and grief. So some factors that contributed to my mental health challenges was this new reality of living life with chronic pain and fatigue, leading to physical and functional limitations, in particular, not being able to go back to work or doing the things I used to do with my friends, especially the physical activities like Filipino folk dancing and snowboarding and running. Also for me, and I know I'm not alone, many of you can probably relate to this, where my sense of self-worth was conditional upon working, doing, achieving, on being productive, ticking off your to-do list. And so with less doing, I actually felt less worthy of my own acceptance. And for me, I had a long habit of repressing particular emotions, in particular, grief, shame, and anger. So at that 1-year mark after my accident, I decided to take the mindfulness-based stress reduction program. And the main things I took away from that 8-week program was that, mindfulness is actually a lifelong daily practice in responding to every moment for the rest of your life. And I also learned that it's not about what you do, it's how you do it. And those hows are those foundational attitudes that Angie talked about. And so it doesn't matter if you're going to meditate for 10 minutes every day and I do yoga 5 times a week, if the whole time you're doing it with judgment of yourself because you can't let go of expectations of how you have to be, how your mind has to be. So it doesn't matter what you do, it's the how. And that how is a turning towards your experience, no matter what the experience is. So really, mindfulness is learning to be in a relationship, a particular relationship where we have an open mind and an open heart to experience what's here. And so, out of those 7 attitudes that Angie talked about, these were the 3 attitudes that helped me specifically in terms of coping with anxiety and depression. Non-judgment helped me to stop shitting on myself. So stop shitting on yourself. Should is what I'm saying. I was like, I shouldn't feel angry. I shouldn't be sad because I should be happy and I just should be grateful that I'm alive. And all of this shoulding on myself led to me layering on the mask of smile and be happy and everything is good. Acceptance. I love the image of the welcome mat because acceptance reminded me that, Jaisa, you're allowed to be human, and to be human is to feel everything. Give yourself permission, at least a minute, an hour, to be sad, to be angry, to be frustrated, to be irritated, to feel all those feelings, at least for me, the unpleasant feelings. I repressed. I swept under the rug of gratitude. So gratitude is great, but I used it as a rug to sweep certain emotions under. So acceptance allowed me to give myself allowance to feel and express these emotions. And then finally, beginner's mind, or simple curiosity, curious interest. Instead of ignoring emotions that I don't want to feel, curiosity reminded me to turn towards this experience with an interest to maybe learn and discover something so that I might understand something new that will help me to move forward to feel better. Now, before mindfulness, I didn't even know that I wasn't happy because I was too busy and distracted to acknowledge what I was feeling inside. And the problem with that is when I was not aware that I was suffering emotionally, then I could not give myself compassion, because compassion involves a sensitivity and awareness to your experience of suffering coupled with a deep desire to alleviate that suffering. So if I'm not aware of that I'm even struggling, then I can't practice compassion. And that's why I put the image of a bird with two wings, because we can't fly with just mindfulness. We need compassion. And that compassion has to begin with yourself. Self-compassion, which is compassion directed inward, relating to yourself as the object of your own care and concern when you're facing suffering. It involves your capacity to comfort and soothe yourself, to motivate yourself with encouragement when you suffer, fail, or feel inadequate. And together, mindfulness and self-compassion, that lays the foundation for a self-care practice to grow. So for example, with mindfulness, I became aware that I was really struggling emotionally, and with that self-compassion, that desire to feel better, when I started having suicidal thoughts returning into my life, I went straight to my physician. I said, I need help. So it's because of mindfulness and self-compassion that I referred myself to CAMH. I saw a psychiatrist, got assessed, got diagnosed, and I got referred to all the different therapies I needed that has helped me learn to cope with anxiety and depression since. So basic message is mindfulness alone is not enough. Mindfulness opens the door so that we can then also develop a self-compassion practice. And so speaking of practice, let's take a few minutes, just 3 minutes to practice. And just a heads up that because we're going to pay more attention to ourselves, you're going to notice both pleasant and even unpleasant things, physical, emotional sensations. But just remember and trust that mindfulness is not making your pain worse. It's just having us be more aware of what's here. And also remember that you are always in control of your own attention. So practice self-care, and remember, you pay attention to what you want, when you want, for how long you want. So you can ignore my guidance and put your attention on what you're looking at, breathing, a part of your body. You listen to your own needs. So with that, getting into a comfortable position. You can have your eyes gently closed, or if you want to look at the ground in front of you. And let's, in our mind, lay that welcome mat out before you. May this welcome mat remind you to open your mind and heart with the openness of curiosity, friendly acceptance, with patience and trust and letting go of how you need to feel, be, or do. And with this curious, kind acceptance, just bringing your attention to your legs and feet, noticing how your legs and feet feel. What about your hips, buttocks? Curiously bringing your attention to your torso, your belly and chest, and your entire back. And then scanning your shoulders and both arms and hands. And then moving your attention to your neck, face, and the rest of your head. And then expanding your awareness so that you're aware of your whole body now, sitting or standing or lying, from head to toe, just putting your welcome out for your body to be as it is right now. And if you notice your mind wandering away, if you have a mind, it will wander. So no judgment, gently bring your mind back to the body. And then we'll move on to putting the welcome mat out for your emotions. Have you asked yourself yet today, how am I feeling? So I invite you to ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? And giving yourself permission and allowance to feel whatever is here. And it helps often to label your emotion. Worried, relaxed, stressed, irritated, nervous, all welcome. And then finally, let's come to the breath. Maybe notice it in your nose or throat, chest or belly. Noticing how your breath is always unfolding in real time. Always fresh, always new, and that's why it is an amazing tool to use to anchor your mind to the here and now. This inhale, this exhale, always fresh and new in the now. And finally, we'll move on to a self-care step, asking yourself, what do I need? What would I love to do for this evening, this afternoon? What do I need for myself this weekend? What does my body need, my mind need? And if this is your first time asking yourself this, sometimes answers don't come up, so I encourage you to repeat this question every day. What do I need? And then visualizing yourself doing that which you need. And finally, taking a final few breaths, thanking yourself for taking this time to nourish your body and mind as you have. And if you have any comments or questions, take note of that, and we can address them during the Q&A after this. When you're ready, you can open your eyes as we continue to the conclusion of our talk.
Thanks, Jaisa. That is the best way to learn and benefit from mindfulness is through the practice. So then there's a few resources here. I mean, because I'm on faculty at the Center for Mindfulness Studies, we have a whole whack of programs. I also wanted to mention the one below there, Mindfulness Toronto, mindfulnesstoronto.net. They have a collection of all the resources in Toronto. There's lots of other programs in Toronto, so feel free to go to that as a resource. And then the last thing is, number one, when possible, just do one thing at a time. Number two, pay full attention to what you're doing. Number three, when the mind wanders, gently bring it back without judgment. Number four, repeat step 3 several billion times. And then number 5, investigate your distractions. Be curious about them. All right. And then there's a bunch of apps. I'm sure you guys have your favorite ones, but those are just some great ones. All right. And then there's some resources here that Martha, did you want to talk about them, or you can just take a look here? There's all the resources in the city.